I just want to introduce myself first. My name's Alan East, and I'm with the Desperado LGBTQ plus Film Festival at Paradise Valley Community College in Phoenix. And we're excited to have Lawrence Duke here. He's got a long history in film and a former U of A student way back in the day. So there's a connection to our state. So, and Britt Ruert is here. He's with Paradise Valley Community College, and he's going to be doing the moderation for this conversation. So, Britt, take it away.
Okay, yeah. Hey, so I just kind of wanted to start at the beginning of your career. How'd you get interested in film? Like how'd you get into it? Is it something you studied while you were down at the U of A?
It actually it isn't. I mean, I had an interest in it, but then I was doing some other things when I was in undergrad. So I think I majored in psychology and business,
Mhm.
at the time. So when I was there, I was doing that. On the side, I had interest, but it wasn't until kind of a little bit later on that I kind of fell into it more. I think during graduate school, I got into it kind of on um, kind of the side. I started working at the television station as part of an assistantship that I had, in grad school, and then from there I kind of got involved in other aspects of it. But yeah, definitely there was, an interest there, but not. I wasn't necessarily taking the classes there. Yeah.
Mhm. So how'd you end up breaking into the business? Like, what's your origin
And
story?
I had an opportunity to go and to teach at Newhouse at Syracuse University as a grad student,
Oh,
and
nice.
there get a master's degree in radio and television film. So at the time I went there, and I started working, doing that teaching, and then through personal contacts, not through the university, but through friends of mine. I had somebody that knew um, Rob Lorenz, who was working with Clint Eastwood at the time from El Paso
Hmm.
Productions, and I was really interested in the project they were doing, which was um, a shooting in Savannah, Georgia, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and so I was able to, make calls. I kind of hooked in, and I had was able to get a position there with the AD team, as a set production assistant, and that was my kind of first time professional, you know, working on set in production and doing that. It was an amazing experience. Like I love that. I was like, I was down there. I was kind of meeting everybody. It was a great place to be at the time. It was a really, the themes of the movie were really interesting. The town was involved with it, and that's where I just kind of fell in love with it all. So yeah.
Now, you're often credited on IMDb as a, post-production producer.
Mhm.
What's involved in that? I
Uh,
know that's usually the editing and things like that, but if you could expand
right.
on that a little bit more and what you do.
Right. I think when I started out, I was doing, more line producing and production, and then, it kind of evolved into the things that I was more managing, and this role that I had at a production company called VZS Films. I was in charge of post production and production. So I kind of started just, working on that part of it. Now, what that is kind of the whole setup for the post production. So it's involved in the entire production, but you're dealing with the front end post production, which is setting up everything, dailies, working with camera, working with your lab, the post production facility, and everything, with the DP, setting the color, the look of the film. Or video, HD, and were, all of the technical part of it coming together. Then the dailies, that are coming through with every day, with the film, and then going into the finishing. So it's post sound and VFX, music, all the editorial, so the offline editorial, and then the finishing, online editorial and color grading, and
A
everything that
lot.
goes into the final mix of the project. So, and originally I started out features. I was doing that, and then I moved more into series, and scripted drama series was is what I've been doing for like the last, I'd say, like 10 years. I've been doing those.
Sure. Now I wanted to ask, what are some of your favorite projects that you've worked on?
Oh gosh. I like a lot. I mean, recently I just did Fellow Travelers for
Yeah,
Showtime, and I mean, I really, I like love that. I mean, I think it was a great project. I think everybody put a lot of time into to getting it as accurate as possible, and the look of it, and kind of feeling that time period. It's extends from the 1950s and things going on, at the time in the government, and then it goes into, the 1980s.
hmm
And it was just, I think it was really, handled well, and a great project, overall. So that's just something very recent, that I was working on that I really like. But,
and I'll have some more
I,
questions
I'm like
on fellow
a,
travelers by the end of the thing.
yeah, I like,
Got a lot of attention for sure.
yeah, yeah. But I like period pieces. I haven't worked, I don't think, as many as I would like to. I mean, I've worked on Peaky Blinders for a period.
Mhm.
I also like, a lot of the ensemble casts, like, some of the drama, things that go on to Hallmark, and the series like that. So I worked on like 5 seasons of Virgin River, and Sweet Magnolias, and Firefly Lane, and just strong character dramas. Not a ton of VFX, although some of them have them, and you're just, you never know what's going to kind of hit, and it could be something interesting. But it's I like character drama, and a nice ensemble piece, like that,
Sure.
and series. So yeah.
Because we're working with the Desperado Film Festival, what do you think are some of the important aspects of including LGBT characters and including really LGBT themes within media, whether that be film or serialized television or any other projects?
Well, I think it's really important for representation. And during the course of the time that I have been, producing and, studio executive, it's just increased so much. It's just the visibility has changed a lot. I mean, I was back. I remember I worked at CBS, and I was working in development. This is kind of early on, like, late 90s. And I remember when, we saw the pilot, we were all getting the pilot for Will and Grace, and it was just like, wow, oh my gosh, this is so different. And that I was in that time period, there where I'm like, oh wow, this finally, like, this is going on. This is kind of happening right now. There were a couple other pilots at the time of shows similar. I mean, that's the one that went with, I think that was at NBC originally, but we always got all the pilots from all the other, networks, at the time when it was going on. But we're really excited about that, and just to see where it's come now, and then working on something like Fellow Travelers, and just seeing so much representation, which I think is, obviously very important.
Mhm.
And I worked on my own projects that, would have been, premiering at Frameline and Outfest, or, and that type of content on the side that I've just done outside of the studios and independent filmmaking.
Sure. One of the projects you worked on was Castlevania, and I think I mentioned to you before we started this interview, my partner is currently in the process of watching it. I'm sure that means at some point they're gonna have me watch it, which will be a lot of fun because they are having a really good time with Castlevania. And saying that Castlevania is animated. Show like Fellow Travelers is live action. What are some of the differences in doing live action versus animation for post-production work?
Yeah, I think, well, the timelines for sure, because I mean, an animation series, I mean, I've done, I was working for TBS and TNT for a while and doing some of their animation series. I do more live action, but the ones that I've worked on, I mean, I've found that it takes it's a longer process. I mean, you've got all the art that goes into it, and the actual creation of the animation. So I mean, I know that the schedules can be really drawn out a lot longer to make sure that everything gets done. So I mean, that's the difference for me working from the studio or network side, with when things are being delivered, and how that's working with the creative process.
So you've done some work with Netflix. I'm just wondering, what is it like working with Netflix?
Well, Netflix is really, it's interesting, it's different than other studios. And I was there at a time when, we were really building our original content there, so it was, we had a lot of shows that were in development, and, we were trying to get, different budget ranges, and do different things. I think at the time they only had, like, that was House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. They had a
Mhm.
few original series, and then a lot of their show programming was licensing. So what we were doing, is bringing all these new projects in at different price points and different ways of doing it. So it was really exciting, actually, because we were doing a lot of post production outside of LA
Mhm.
for the shows, and all over, and we are just kind of opening it up. And originally they had a vendor program that you would they would look at all the vendors and see if it would do what they needed them to be doing, for deliveries. And so you'd be looking and working with them for that. And we were also uplifting some of the other shows that were licensed shows to be shooting in 4K, and finishing in HDR,
Mhm.
UHD, which it was a kind of a transition period from HD to UHD, and SDR to HDR. So it was kind of a future proofing, and bringing things up, like the sound mixes at the time. They were 5.1, and we were moving into Atmos, and wanted all of the series to be in Atmos. For that level of um, you know post sound. So we're working with a lot of the stages around town and internationally to build out Atmos stages and mixes, and doing that. But yeah, and overall, just the content, and things coming in, and stories, and like kind of all of that, building up what we could do with the original series.
A lot of fellow travelers tends to deal with things like the Lavender Scare, and just basically t telling stories from the past. Why is this so important, and how does a lot of this still resonate? Do you think with today?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to have that, to experience that. I mean, I think a lot of younger people may not realize, like, all of that was going on at the time, and I think seeing that, and from a historical perspective, I mean, I think people may have heard about, like, McCarthy era, and like the blacklisting, and the blacklisting of Hollywood, and that part of
Yeah,
it, but
Black
maybe
Committee, all
not
that.
so much what was going on with the LGBT community, and how they were surviving, and living in, working in the government at that time, and in those positions, and how careful they had to be, and how they had to manage their lives, in order to deal with everything that was going on right there, in front of them.
Hmm.
And then and it transitions over, to where some of those relationships, and I mean, the main story, with Matt Bomer and his character, and Jonathan Bailey, how they're coming together, but never ever able to actually have the relationship that they wanted, because of everything that's going on there in the world, all the way up through, later in the 80s, and just shows the frustrations of that. So I think it's just something to see, because it may be, some people, younger people now may not realize that, or people that didn't live during that time, or the 80s, so I think that might be.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Advice for young filmmakers, people who want to break into the business.
Yeah.
What would
All
you
right,
say?
Lawrence, how do you get into it now?
Yeah.
It's different now. I mean, I think it's, I don't, I think now it's really challenging. I mean, again, it's connections and, kind of making sure, you're meeting as many people as possible and you're hearing about as much that's going on as possible. But, I would say, the same way as always, you want to, try to get, they still have the page programs at some of the studios or at the networks, and these entry level jobs where you can meet more people. I mean, the more you're around it, and the more that you're in contact or doing something associated with it, the more opportunities you have to meet somebody. And and everybody wants to help people out that are just starting their career out, so it's a good time, at that point, right out of school, if you can hook into an internship where you want to be. I think that's a good thing. I know it's hard to focus. There's so many different parts of it, and I think that's something that everybody struggles with. Is like, well, what exactly do I want to do, or where do I want to be? And what's the right kind of internship to take, or what's the right person to talk to for that. So I think it's really, doing that research and kind of talking to as many people you feel like will, are doing things that you think you want to do, and just try to get that information through contacts you have maybe at your, college or university. I think that's a way to do it, have professors or possibly people that they know there that can connect you.
Mm.
I just have a quick question because it just seems like things used to be all about LA and Hollywood and all that stuff. And now there's studios in this state and that state. And Toronto, I guess, has probably got a stronger film production industry than it used to have. Do you notice that affecting the industry as a whole, or where you're having to go work, or
You get used to all of the international time zones, and I think I'm very used to that with Netflix, because I mean, like we had, you would go into rooms there and you'd always be connecting with somewhere or some part of the world because it's so international there, like you're everybody's, kind of flying into the campus in LA, or you're talking to somebody in one of the rooms, and you got, video calls with, pretty much everywhere that's, shooting, and now it's just kind of gotten, I think, production and post-production has gotten so international that, before US based shows were all kind of coming back in, and you had the post-production facilities here in LA, and,
right?
Everybody would want to finish here, and you kind of want your editors here in a room, and, then you'd want to finish here so you can be in on the mixes and do that. But now with everything remote and, you know, everybody knowing that they can do it that way, or just fly somewhere for the mix or be there for a certain period of time, it's a lot of the post-production work I think is going international. They're keeping a lot of the shows all the way through in Toronto, where they might have brought it back to LA at some point, and where they're keeping it in the UK, or wherever they started out with the credits. And then VFX, of course, that's everywhere, like anywhere that you can get, Vietnam or Istanbul, like you're all over filling that out for the costs, because that can be a really high cost to the production, depending on what it is. And, you're always looking for, ways to save there, but get the best quality work. So, yeah.
So do you think it's gotten easier or more complex to be a post-production uh,
Oh,
manager from
oh.
20 years ago to today. I mean, find
Oh,
yourself
yeah. I
stressing a
mean,
little bit
there's a lot
more.
of things that, it's just way more complex. I mean, when I started out, I mean, we were, cutting negative and like doing, working in film and telecine and like labs and that kind of thing, and now, I mean, it's none of that. It's completely changed and UHD, HDR, and everybody's set up. I mean, the workflow, you get to know the workflow, and the workflow tends to be the same, but I think the way it can be approached and the number of options and the technology. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you're always chasing and improving and trying different technologies, and it's real exciting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's tech. It's just kind of like meetings with people and figuring it out and how do we accomplish that? Because everything, that's what every production is its own snowflake. Everything is like, it's its own individual thing, and you've got to go and figure out like what does this particular project need and how do you make this happen? And I've definitely been on shows where, it's just the thing, it's just not done before. And then you have to do it within your budget. So you have to figure out like, because you can't like make it explosive. You have to figure out how to
Right.
achieve whatever is needed for this particular production,
Yeah.
with that. So yeah, it's challenging, it's interesting, it's exciting. Yeah, it's a great, yeah, I mean it definitely is different, for that, like it's always changing.
Interesting.
Well, very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, but
yeah,
yeah,
we're right on time. This is great. Lawrence
Yeah.
is really interesting. I love hearing all your experience in the production world and your film stories. I think that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Thank you for sitting down and taking the time with us. We really appreciate it.
sure, yeah, absolutely. Thanks,
I
and
was just
good luck with the festival and everything.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I wanted real quick just to kind of go around. I mean, Lawrence, you said a little bit of what you have going on, but I also wanted Britt to kind of share a little bit about the
Yeah.
film school at Paradise Valley. So, you want to share a little bit about that or any classes that people need to be checking out?
Yeah, people should be checking out some of the film studies courses that we have at PVCC. Not only do we have Intro to and Contemporary Cinemas, I believe there's a Hitchcock class that's going on. There's a Women in Film class that's going on. Um, and the more people we have sign up for classes, the more options for classes we'll be able to offer. So definitely, if you're in the Paradise Valley area and just itching to learn more about film, definitely sign up and take a class. Take one with me. They can hire me more often, and I have a bunch of ideas for classes that will be
Yes.
very fun.
Yes,
But I
and
need
Britt,
people to sign up to classes
that's
in
right.
order to
And
do them.
Britt does have his new book coming out, so we got to make sure to
Yeah.
yeah, get
Due out probably next year from McFarland Press. Psych Outs, Trips, and Flashbacks, Hippies in Culture and Film during the long 1960s.
which is
It'll be a really cool little book, and talking about a bunch of films that most people haven't heard of, and hopefully shining a light
yeah.
on some really cool films.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for being part of our conversation today. I really appreciate it. For everybody watching, our film festival is January 24th, 25th, and 26th, 2025. It's incredible how time flies at Paradise Valley Community College. This is our 16th year, and we'd love to see you in the seats. So
Gonna
if
be a
you have
great
any
show.
questions, yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions, just reach out to us at the school. You can buy tickets online through the box office or you can call them, or you can find it at our website at desperadofilmfestival.com. So again, thanks, Britt. Thanks, Lawrence, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thanks.